I painted 3 bases, one in 100 minutes, the second in 10 minutes, and a third in just 60 seconds. Find out how long it really takes to base a model. So I set myself a challenge because I had to find out how long it actually takes to paint a good base. I can make tutorials and techniques that take hours, yet no one will use them to base their army, so it's pointless. But in the last base, I use a base material I am shocked people aren't talking about online. It's cheap, it doesn't need painting, and it screams sci-fi. Is it possible to base a model in 60 seconds, or will it just be obvious? I applied a layer of Martian Iron Earth straight to the base, a crackle paint from Games Workshop. Using a bright colour will add more interest to the base than a dull one like brown. I'm being careful not to get paint on the base rim, so there's one less thing to paint. At the end of the minute, it was still wet, so I'm bending the rules and leaving it to dry overnight. Does it look good? It'll do the job if you've got a game tomorrow. I've got 10 minutes to paint this base. That's ages, right? I thought so until things started to go wrong. I massively overestimated how long each step will take. I glued a piece of slate to the base to quickly add some height. I don't have time for putty like Milliput, as this can take 24 hours to dry. Then I applied a layer of Martian Iron Earth to the base. Did this on the slate too, so it's the same colour as the rest of the base. I used the hairdryer to speed up the drying time. This is the first thing to take longer than expected. I'm starting to stress. After 6 minutes, I needed to start painting the base. I carefully tried to remove any paint that hadn't dried. I'm committing my first cardinal sin. I'm hoping there's no extra texture created that would look unnatural. Now I'm 7 out of 10 stress. My shoulders are touching my ears. I can see bits of slate and black base showing, so I painted a layer of World Eaters Red to cover them. It is thinned down as always. In my panic, I get some paint on the rim, so I had to paint that now. I don't need an extra step. I used the best black ever, Black Legion. This covers in one layer. I'm praying the paint dries faster with a hairdryer. I can feel the clock ticking. I commit my second cardinal sin, dry brushing wet paint. I rushed a Carrick Stone dry brush, desperate to add some colour to the base. I tear my hair out, hoping something can hide my mistakes. I reach for my trusty grass tufts, hoping they can save me again. I use one to cover where I remove some wet paint. As the time was running out, I painted the Reitland Flesh Shade wash on the base to add some shading. My final Hail Mary. Was it enough? The base looks okay, but it's taken a few years off my life. Leaving the crackle paste to dry overnight would have saved my hair. You can base a model in 10 minutes, but it's easier if you can give the paint time to dry. Now I've got some time to breathe. What can I do in 100 minutes? Start, I glue some slate to the base. This will add some extra height and interest to the base. Then I base coated it with Mornfine Brown, so any gaps between the cracks will be brown. Then I painted a layer of gloss varnish. This helps the crackle paste stick to the base and makes the cracks bigger. Watered down Martian Iron Earth was painted on the slate. Then this was applied to the rest of the base as the previous bases. I gave this a few blasts with a hairdryer to speed up the drying time. When most of the base was dry, I painted a second layer on the slate. Once that dried, I washed it with Reitland Flesh Shade, a flesh colour wash that settles into the recesses and adds shading in one step. To brighten the base, I airbrush patches of Jacaro Orange. Airbrushing is just a very heavy dry brush. You don't remove as much paint from your brush, so you don't paint the recesses. This starts to bring some life to the base as it looks a bit dull. Any spots I missed, I dry brush with Beastie Gore Flesh to add some variation to the base. Then I dry brush Carrick Stone over the whole base. This highlights the base and brings it all together. Now, the base material no one is using. It's spare watch parts. I got this bag for £4 from Amazon. They scream sci-fi or steampunk. I chose some interesting shapes, then cut them with pliers, then stuck them to the base with super glue. They look good straight out the bag, but I'm going to paint them to really sell the scrapyard look. I base coated 2 of the bits with Balthazar Gold. You don't need to paint these bits, but it acts as a primer for the next stages. The big bit was base coated with lead belcher to add some variation to the metals on the base. They needed 2 thin coats. Then they were washed with Typhus Corrosion. This paint contains small bits in it, which add a texture I can pick out with washers and dry brushing. It's a very strong wash, so I brought some colour back to the wash pots by overbrushing them with the colours I used to base coat them. I painted verdigris oil wash from Knott's Hobbies onto the copper parts. This wash can be strong, so I removed most of it before painting the base. The silver part was painted with rust oil wash from Knott's Hobbies. I wanted to create a subtle colour with these washes, not just heavy rust or verdigris. Because I've got some spare time, I dry rust the metals with colours similar to the washes. You don't need to add this step, but I'm trying to pick out the edges and texture from the typhus corrosion wash where fresh corrosion would form. The base was painted with a Balin black. This nicely frames the bases and the model on it. I finished the base with a grass tuft. This is a 4mm base tuft from Gamer's Grass. This is what extra time actually gives you. Not just more steps, but time to let each stage dry, and you don't need to rush. This base was chilled and enjoyable, not a mad rush to finish on time. Click the link in the description to get our free basing blueprint to help you paint awesome bases on your minis. So, which is worth it? The 60-second base works, but the 10-minute base took a few years off my life. The 100-minute base was the best of the three, but here's the honest truth. I could have painted that base in 15 or 20 minutes if I'd been able to pause halfway through and let the texture paint dry. The extra time isn't about painting, it's just letting the paint dry properly. The 100-minute base used paint design for miniature painting and it looks great. But for terrain, do you need to waste your hobby paint? Will cheaper paint get the same result? Click here to find out if £1 paint from Poundland can do the same job.